So a lot of 80 or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools and wrestling clubs and whatnot like to put out this narrative as kind of a sales pitch that that wrestling and BJJ cure ADHD. You could also, I don't hear them say it really ever, that it cures depression or anxiety. Although with all three of those, there are ways that it actually helps, but there is no actual cure for ADHD. There are only ways of trying to mitigate it and understand the difficulties that come along with it, and do what we do what we can in order to try to help people. So the thing is where these instructors and coaches and whatnot, where they're kind of getting this idea that they can cure ADHD specifically, is that when somebody comes into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school or a wrestling club or something like that, and they start practicing the sport, and if they get really, really into it, then they have this sudden ability to be able to focus for an entire class, and they're well behaved, they're not impulsive, or they're not super distracted or anything like that. They suddenly have focus. So therefore the ADHD must be gone. Well, that's not actually quite the case. And this is one of those things that I think is a little bit more on the controversial side, not because it doesn't exist, but it's controversial in that a lot of people struggle to tap into this, and this is what we call the ADHD hyperfocus. So hyperfocus means that when somebody with ADHD happens to be very interested in something, they have the ability to really, really shut out all distractions, and then they become obsessive about it. And that's almost the better way of putting it, rather than hyperfocus, is that it's like a ADHD obsessiveness that comes from doing a certain task or what have you. And so when it comes to what people are experiencing, they think that, okay, well, we can see that the ADHD person can suddenly focus in this environment, so therefore the ADHD must be cured. And then the problem with thinking this way is that once that person goes back into another environment where they are not as stimulated by what they are doing, then they don't have that focus. And so they're like, oh, well, now I'm back into this broken stage. And for other people, maybe they go into BJJ or they go into wrestling or something along those lines, and they try to get through a class, they try to learn things, but no matter how much they try to force it, they're not necessarily into it, and then they don't get into that hyper-focused state, and they're not able to perform really, really well. And now you have this person who's been promised that their ADHD is going to be cured by this activity, and they are just not into it. And so what's going on here? Well, first of all, when we talk about the ADHD hyperfocus, it's very selective. Not everybody's going to be able to do it. You can't turn it on or off. It just sort of happens. There are ways that you can kind of promote it to happen a little bit better. Like if I'm going to go study, I can't necessarily study on my computer at home because all my distractions are around, and I'm going to be kind of distracted by everything, and I'm not going to be able to get anything done. I have access to the internet, things like that. Now, there are apps out there that can be very helpful for somebody who is trying to work from home or anything along those lines, called Freedom. And what Freedom does is it's just basically a website and app blocker. So you tell it what apps should not be accessible to you for a predetermined amount of time, and now the distractions are gone and you have permission to actually do some work because you don't have as many things to work around. But the thing about that is that you kind of have to really go into the controls and make sure that it actually makes it so you can't even shut down the app, right? And then if something comes up, you're kind of stuck in this lurch where you're like, oh shit, I need to do this thing, but I can't have access to the things that I need to because the Freedom app is still running for this predetermined amount of time, and now I'm stuck. And so it's a really, really good productivity tool in some scenarios, but for somebody that's trying to work for ADHD and are really trying to focus for a long period of time, sometimes it may not be as effective. Whereas if you were to leave your home and go to a coffee shop and you were to put on headphones, noise-canceling headphones or whatever, so you can't hear the outside world, and you were to try to work in that space, maybe you'll be able to find that hyper-focus. But The thing about ADHD is that some people will even describe it as a boredom intolerance. And it is a lot more extreme than most people give it credit for. So I was going through, all the way through school, including college, I was a straight A student when it comes to things that I was interested in. And for everything else, it was C's and D's. And so my GPA was not particularly impressive because if I was not motivated to learn something, it was not going to happen. And so my parents had decided, instead of like medicating me or getting me actual treatment, was to put me into study halls, which were in the middle of my class day. So I was taking fewer classes throughout the day because I was going to these study halls so I can get a head start on my homework so that I would have enough time to get it done. But when ADHD is the problem and that it is a focus issue, when there is that boredom intolerance going on, you can give an ADHD person all the time in the world to complete a task and it will not get done if they're not interested in doing it. Now, the thing is that when you're growing up with ADHD, on another level of that, we have also the social aspects of that, which is going to be that you, depending on the type of ADHD you have, you may be a fast speaker, like I obviously am, and you may have trouble like holding on to secrets. If other people tell you something and you don't want to blurt out somebody else's personal information, it's probably going to happen. You are going to be more hyper, you're going to be more impulsive, and kids growing up who have not developed the emotional intelligence to be able to cope with that, they're going to treat people with ADHD much different. And so they're going to have a much harder time developing friends. Some of them can overcompensate by being people pleasers, and that's going to be another thing that kind of leads ADHD people to be more prone to having abusive relationships. And so you have all these social issues where people are kind of distancing themselves from you. And so that is going to lead to you trying to overcompensate. And this is going to lead to certain anxiety. So if you're always late, there's going to be anxiety around lateness. I, for one, tend to be actually about 20 minutes early to literally anything because I am overcompensating for my fear and anxiety around lateness. For other people, because you are going to be more prone to having abusive relationships, or people push you away or get angry at you a lot more, there's going to be other developments that are going to lead to depression and anxiety. You're always going to feel like a bit of an outsider. And so those are going to be sister issues that generally come along with ADHD and can make ADHD even more difficult and problematic. So, does grappling actually help that much? Well, it is exercise. And that is one of the most beneficial things a person with ADHD can do. And in order to support exercise, you have to be eating in a way that gives you good quality energy. And so oftentimes people, when they are more fitness motivated or activity motivated, will eat in order to support that activity. If you're eating well and you're exercising, your ADHD symptoms will be reduced, as are your sibling conditions, depression and anxiety. You're going to be less prone to depression if you are grappling regularly or you're doing any type of exercise regularly. So that's going to make things better. When it comes to anxiety, again, exercise is going to make that better. Eating properly is going to make that better. And so, in a way, yes, doing wrestling and grappling and whatnot is going to help with ADHD and the problems that come with it, but it is in no way going to be a cure for it. And it is no way for you to necessarily avoid medication for it. And that is another important thing that I do want to go ahead and touch base on here, is that there are general attitudes, especially when you read the labels for the medications for ADHD, particularly the stimulant medications, that they are going to be basically two different ones that are the common ones, which are a D-amphetamine salt, because it's got the word amphetamine in it. People are going to have issues with that. The other one is going to be methylphenidate. So again, people are saying, well, the first word is meth. Well, here's the thing, is that these are not street drugs. They are not the same thing as methamphetamine that you would get on the street. And your teeth are not going to fall out. You're not going to generally become like gaunt, and you're not going to have like all these different conditions that are going to come along with taking methamphetamine. So chemically speaking, one of the few things that I actually learned from like my science classes in school, because we didn't really have that many, I had to actually start to learn and self-teach in order to understand how science actually works. But one of the very first things that we did see was a video. We didn't actually do it in class, which sucks, is what happens when you drop pure sodium into water. It explodes. If you take sodium and then you combine it with chlorine and then you drop that into water, it becomes salt water. It becomes stable. It does not explode in water. So the same kind of principle can be had here is that, yes, there are going to be similarities between methamphetamine and methylphenidate, as well as, that and Adderall, right? Or deamphetamine salts, right? So the thing is that we are actually changing the chemical compounds that are being used, and for people with ADHD, this can actually be hyper beneficial for them. And it's not necessarily for me, right? Everybody's going to have a different reaction to these medications, and everybody's ADHD is going to be different. There are more than one type of ADHD. Some people can be more impulsive, some people can be more inattentive, some people can be more hyperactive. So the manifestation of ADHD is not going to be some universal condition. It's actually more of an umbrella state labeling of several different conditions, and different medications are going to be different for different people. Some people find that Adderall or Ritalin or any of these medications might have more of a calming effect, might actually help with the hyperactivity side of it. Whereas some people, they get on Strattera or something like that, and they might find that they're less impulsive or something like that. I find that with my antidepressants and with my anti-anxiety medications and medications that help me with my insomnia that comes along with my ADHD, that I am less likely to have a major freakout. And there was a period of time when I was first coming back to Seattle. I was already dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression from my experience over in Maine, from all the isolation out there, the cold, and the constant work and everything like that. I just became super overwhelmed. And then I came back to Seattle and was starting to get actually treated for my ADHD for the very first time in my life. And we went on to Adderall, and we kept increasing the dose, and I became a fucking spaz. I was completely inconsolable, and if you pissed me off, I was liable to do something absolutely wild. And there were multiple attempts at suicide that happened in that period of time. And it was very, very difficult for me. And that's just one of those things that, people with ADHD are going to be more prone to. So, understanding that medication can cause problems, it can also help with those problems. A lot of people that I know very much so benefit from stimulant ADHD medications. I'm not necessarily in that category because I have more of a propensity to have anxiety issues that come along with that. So, the big picture here, and there are other channels here that will go into ADHD in a more constructive way than I am in this, because really there are so many things that come along with ADHD, such as taking on huge projects like taking on this channel that you feel obligated to do all the time, and then eventually you don't finish any of them, and you've got all these projects, and then eventually you reach this wall where you just become completely overwhelmed by everything, and even small tasks can be very hard for you to do. So different things that you can start to do with those things, and one of the ideas that I'm currently working on is the idea of utilizing blankets for the messes. So we have messes and piles that kind of happen everywhere, and we need to start being able to get on top of them, but there are so many of them that we don't know where to focus, and when we have ADHD, we have a tendency to work over here for about 5 minutes, and then we get distracted by something on our phone, and then we work over here for 5 minutes, and then we get distracted again, and da-da-da-da-da. So what you can do is you can put up a curtain so you can't see the other rooms, or close the doors to the other rooms that have messes in them. Take blankets, put them on all the piles except for the one that you're going to be tackling today. And therefore, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, you cannot touch it. You put Freedom on your phone or whatever, you turn that off so that you cannot be distracted by your apps or Facebook or anything like that. YouTube channels like this one. And then you're just focusing on that one pile rather than the entire house as a whole. Same thing's going to be true with yard tasks, same thing's going to be true with anything. So you just do what you can so you can't be overwhelmed, right? Try to get it out of sight and out of mind. Try to focus on being a lot more like taking yourself out of the situations where you have those distractions. Try to come into it with a good mindset. Going out and exercising and then coming in and dealing with whatever mess or studying or whatever it is that you have to do. Taking breaks, don't allow yourself to go too long. We have a tendency, if we do get into hyperfocus, that's going to be a 12-hour day and it's going to go by like that. Like it's just gone. And that's just the way it is when you're not neurotypical. You are going to have issues, and so you have to find what solutions can I create for myself in order to actually make this thing happen, despite the difficulties that I'm going to have with my ADHD, depression, and anxiety. The more that you can mitigate that, the better off you're going to be. I would say do not try to delay getting psychiatric care and getting medicated just because there's social stigma around it, because frankly, a lot of people do find that medication actually really, really helps them. And even if it is just dealing with the other things. And that's actually the next issue that I wanted to go over, is that sometimes the issues that you're facing when you have ADHD aren't actually the ADHD that's causing the problem at all. If you have depression or you have anxiety or you have trauma in your past, and that is being brought up even in some background sort of way, when you're going into a task, that task is going to become impossible for you because you've got that underlying trauma. So you might start doing some more talk therapy, which might give you more skills for managing your ADHD. The other thing is that if you have depression or anxiety that is, even when you don't feel it, is still working in the background, if you decide to actually address those issues, sometimes your ADHD issues are going to actually start getting better because you're focusing on the depression and or the anxiety. So, don't try to stick to one approach or assume that just because you're taking medication, things are going to get better. You're suddenly going to start thinking clearer. The medications really are in order to help you to perform better, but you need to understand that there are going to be many facets that are going to be playing into what is actually causing your ADHD to be unmanageable. And so getting exercise, getting out and doing things, managing your depression, managing your anxiety, and then coming up with tricks to get yourself to be able to focus better, such as inviting a friend over to hang out with you while you're cleaning your house, even if they're not actually helping. Sometimes that actually gives you the leg up that you need to actually get the job done. They basically become your accountability partner. Same thing for working out. On that exact same note, having a workout partner, somebody that you look forward to seeing going to the gym, is going to get you to the gym more often. When I was really, really going through a major depressive episode, shortly after I came back to Seattle, it was Jet who dragged me to BJJ all the time that kept me in a mental place where I was doing well. So find whatever crutches you can, lean on whoever you can in order to be able to function your best. And this is a big thing going into this is one of the areas where I would say, being in a social group such as a Facebook community or something like that may actually benefit you, because people who are experiencing what you're experiencing can answer questions and share their tips and tricks they've learned over the years in order to make you better. So, and ones that you can actually use to work with your ADHD. So it's really about finding your superpower. And if you haven't found the superpower of hyperfocus yet, maybe it's that your expectations are a little bit off, right, as far as what it's going to be, because there is generally for everybody something that we are going to sit down and do, and hours just disappear, right? And if it's something that is productive, like it's drawing or it's in art or your creative problem solving, which by the way are all ADHD superpowers. We are out of the box thinkers. We are very, very hungry for knowledge. We are very, very hungry for stimuli, and we're impulsive about those things, and that can actually make us pretty intelligent people with pretty impressive resumes and whatnot. I probably have one of the most impressive resumes of anybody I know, and it's because I focus on this thing for a little while, and then I jump over here, and I jump over here, and I jump over here, and you just get super hyper focused on all these little life skills, and then you get bored with them, and so you've developed the skill, and then you moved on to the next one instead of spending absolute years and years and years refining them. But the trade-off to that is that you're more prone to little mistakes and whatnot. So there are pros and cons to it. But at the end of the day, you can't run from it, you can't change it. So all you can do is learn how to work with it. And if anybody says, well, I've got the answer and I can cure you, and it is, this activity, well, they're wrong. I'm sorry. They're just wrong. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope this is helpful for some of you. Let me know if there are questions and thoughts and concerns or things that you guys want me to cover that I haven't yet, because I am more than willing to answer questions and all that. One series that is coming up very shortly is going to be what my strategy has been and what we've been going through for my meniscus tear. This is an important subject for me to cover, specifically because I found the videos done by Chewy Jiu-Jitsu, who is, obviously a grappler, and he's had 2 meniscus repairs in his life. And he has spoken about the night and day difference between one and the other, and, his being able to go back to the sport. And that gave me a lot of motivation and made me feel better about what I was going through, a lot more so than anything else that I had discovered and what I knew. And even though, what I ended up having treated was some freak condition that almost nobody ever has. But, it's one of those things that I think that it helped me, and I want to be the one that puts out information that helps somebody else down the road. And if you are going through a meniscus tear or any injury of any kind, feel free to reach out to me and I can tell you what I know. I have done some talks on here and whatnot about how difficult it was to actually get good quality care, but once I found it, I was pretty confident with what we did with it. So I'm happy to help you guys out in any way, shape, or form that I can, but also keep in mind that just because I'm helping you doesn't necessarily mean that this is probably a question for another video at some point in time, but sometimes people ask for help and it's disingenuous, and they're really, really looking for attention, and I have a life, guys. I have other things that I have going on, and so I want to help you guys, but don't reach out under false pretenses, because that's really obnoxious, and I really don't appreciate it. So thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll get to that again another time. Have a good one.